Hey, did you guys know what is ESG, SRI Sukuk, and Green Sukuk are? Not really. I heard of them, but I don't know the details.
Same here. What do they have to do with Islamic finance?
I found a video that explains us about it. Let's watch together.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Nur Izzati binti Muhammad Syarizal from 5L, and together with my group members from Group 5, we will be presenting on ESG, SRI and Green Sukuk. These concepts promote sustainable and responsible investment while remaining in line with Sharia principles and the objectives of Maqasid al-Sharia.
Assalamualaikum. I will be presenting the relationship between Islamic finance principle and sustainability. At first glance, one might see Islamic finance as purely religious and sustainability as environmental or corporate. However, when we broke down the fundamental rules of Sharia law, we find that they are deeply intertwined with each other. To demonstrate this, I have mapped out. Let's start with the first one. The prohibition of riba, which means exploitative interest, and gara, which refers to excessive speculation or ambiguity in contracts. In Sharia compliance, money cannot just make money out of thin air through interest. Instead, all financial transactions must be backed up by real tangible asset. How does this relate to sustainability? It promotes long-term economic stability by tying finance directly to physical assets rather than that instrument. The system discourages the kind of reckless, short-term speculation that causes economic bubbles. Instead, it encourages responsible, long-term investment that supports steady real economic growth. Next is the concept of risk sharing, specifically utilizing equity-based partnership like mudarabah and musyarakah. Unlike conventional banking, where a lender shifts all financial risk onto the borrower through fixed interest payment, Islamic finance relies on partnership model. Profits and losses are shared transparently between the investors and the entrepreneur. How does this relate to sustainability? This fundamentally addresses social sustainability by removing predatory loan practices that often harm less fortunate people or struggling businesses. By aligning the risk, it provides a much fairer distribution of income. Furthermore, finally, we look at compliance with Maqasid al-Sharia, which translates to the higher objective of Islamic law. Under this framework, investment choices are not just about financial return. They have a moral obligation to safeguard and maintain basic societal foundation, wealth, heritage, and overall human well-being. Because of this, investing in businesses that cause harm to society, such as alcohol, gambling, weapons, or industry causing major pollution, is strictly prohibited. How does this relate to sustainability? This is where we see the most direct link to the modern ESG, environmental, social, and governance criteria. Because ESG priorities are naturally embedded within Maqasid al-Sharia, it guarantees that funds are exclusively allocated to ethical companies. These are companies that actively work to safeguard our natural environment, protect human life, and uplift the general welfare of society. In conclusion, the relationship between Islamic finance principle and forbidden, it is about actively building an economy based on stability, fairness, and ethical responsibility. By design, its core mechanism acts as natural framework for global sustainability.
I will explain about the difference between conventional bonds and sukuk. First, let's look at the definitions. A conventional bond is a debt instrument where investors lend money to an issuer such as government or corporations. In return, the issuer agreed to pay regular interest known as coupon and repay the principal amount when the bond reaches maturity. In contrast, sukuk are investment certificates that represent ownership in a specific asset. Instead of lending money, investors own a share of the underlying asset and receive return generated from the asset. Next, let's discuss the underlying asset requirement. For conventional bonds, the investment is based on debt. Investor provide funds to the issuer, and the issuer promised to repay the borrowed amount together with interest. For sukuk, the investment must be backed by real assets. The return received by investor are generated from the income or profit produced by this asset. Moving on to the contractual relationship. In conventional bonds, the relationship is between a lender and a borrower. Investor act as lender, while issuer act as borrower. However, in sukuk, the relationship is structured as the seller-buyer arrangement. Investor purchase a portion of the underlying asset from the issuer. The issuer may lease the asset, share profit, or buy it back later. Now, let's look at the return to the investors. For conventional bonds, investors receive fixed or predetermined interest payment throughout the investment period. For sukuk, investors receive return from the actual performance of the underlying asset. This return may come from the rental income, business profit, or profit share arrangement.
Here, I am breaking down the characteristics of ESG, SRI, and Green Sukuk. Fundamental to ESG or SRI Sukuk and Green Sukuk is adherence to Sharia, Islamic law, which prohibits riba, gharar, and investment in prohibited sectors such as alcohol, gambling, or weapons. Unlike conventional bonds, which are debt obligation, sukuk represent a beneficial ownership interest in a pool of tangible asset used for all services issuance require approval from Sharia board to ensure that both the legal documentation and underlying asset meet these ethical standards. Second, the ethical focus. Using negative screening to exclude harmful activities, these are rooted in Maqasid al-Sharia, which is the objective of safeguarding life, faith, and wealth. It views humans as stewards of the earth, mandating environmental protection. Transparency is a core pillar of the Sustainable Sukuk framework, ensuring proceeds are used appropriately. Issuers are required to establish internal process for project evaluation and selection, ensure proceeds are credited to a designated account or otherwise tracked appropriately, commit to annual reporting on the utilization of fund and the progress of project, typically obtain an external review or second-party opinion (SPO) to verify the framework's alignment and international standards, which is highly expected by investors. And lastly, alignment with ESG and SDG objectives. Sustainable Sukuk are designed to facilitate financing for projects that meet the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals (SDG). For example, Green Sukuk often target Goal 7, which are affordable and clean energy, and Goal 13, climate action, while Social Sukuk may align with Goal 1, no poverty, and Goal 4, quality education. This is based on Securities Commission Malaysia, November 2019. This alignment allows issuers to diversify their funding sources and attract a broader base of sustainable investors. Example of finance projects, which are green projects, renewable energy, energy efficiency, clean transportation, and green buildings. Social projects, affordable basic infrastructure, healthcare, education, and SME financing. And lastly, Wakaf project, the development of endowment properties or assets to provide social benefits.
I will be presenting on the importance of Maqasid Sharia in sustainable Islamic finance. First, it promotes social justice and fairness. The framework emphasizes that wealth should be distributed fairly, ensuring equal opportunities for everyone in society. It actively helps to reduce poverty and improve social welfare through mechanisms like zakat, wakaf, and profit-sharing arrangements. Second, it protects human welfare. Maqasid Sharia aims to safeguard our well-being by protecting 5 core essentials, which are religion, life, intellect, lineage, and wealth. This gives us a solid foundation for making sure financial decisions always serve human needs. Third, it supports sustainable economic growth. Instead of allowing highly speculative or risky transactions, it focuses on real economic activities. By promoting asset-backed financing and risk-sharing principles, it encourages productive investments that help reduce overall financial instability. Fourth, it encourages ethical financial practices. Islamic finance strictly prohibits harmful elements like riba or interest, gharar, and investing in industries that damage society. This keeps financial activities highly transparent and responsible.
Next, I will continue with the examples of project finance through ESG and SRI Sukuk. As we know, these instrument finance projects that deliver environmental benefits were strictly aligning with Sharia compliance. First, let's look at the renewable energy. In this sector, SRI Sukuk serve as an innovative financial mechanism to expand clean energy infrastructure. A prime example is the MB Kuala Muda Solar, which issued a 1.05 billion ringgit Asian Green SRI Sukuk. This capital funds a large-scale 500 megawatt solar project in Sungai Petani, Kedah. It is structured across 17 district tranches, and the proceeds raised from this sukuk are utilized for 2 key purposes. First is for the repayment of existing borrowings, and second is for paying the sponsor for costs incurred prior. These specific allocations of funds helps to protect and sustain the project's operations over time. Moving to our second sector, which is education. Khazanah Nasional Berhad issued the nation's very first ringgit SRS sukuk from an overall 1 billion ringgit program via a trust-owned special purpose vehicle called Insan Sukuk Berhad. This is simply an independent company created solely to issue the sukuk. Securing a top-tier AAA rating from RAM Ratings, this program distributed its profit to Yayasan Amir to fund the trust school program across Malaysian government school. What makes these projects unique is its pay for success structure. If educational KPIs are met at maturity, the investor recognizes this positive social impact by accepting a 6.22% reduction in their nominal yield. However, if the KPIs are not met, investors will receive their full annual returns and their full principal amount. Next, I will move on to our third sector, which is social welfare projects, featuring LBS Bina Group Berhad. LBS established a 750 million ringgit Sukuk Wakalah program, which under its first tranche, it issued 200 million ringgit through an Asian Social SRI Sukuk. The 200 million ringgit proceeds are allocated into 2 areas. First is affordable housing, which funds the development of Indaman Bandar Sarjana Putra and Mercu Jalil in Klang Valley to help B40 and M40 families achieve home ownership. And secondly, socio-economic investment, which funds the BSP flyover to improve township accessibility and reduce traffic, alongside a public road at Cameron Centrum in Cameron Highlands. In summary,
That is all from us. Thank you.
So now, we understand ESG, SRI Sukuk and Green Sukuk better.
And how they connect Islamic finance with sustainability and Maqasid Sharia.
Plus, the differences between sukuk and conventional bonds and their real-world applications.